All right, we are here. Welcome back to another Modern Lending podcast. I'm your host, Alec Hansen, and 2020 is ending. Can you believe it? Like, we're almost at the end. I had no choice but to call up my buddy René Rodriguez and bring him back on the podcast. This is going to be special, especially because number one, this guy is a mastermind, neuro-linguistic like genius, but he's also just transforming lives, leading the charge of digital storytelling. He's got his Amplify event we want to talk about, but we want to really set you guys up in a conversation. How to win in this digital age, man. That's my passion right now. That's the conversation I want to start with. So let's bring on René and rock and roll. All right, we're live. Oh, the brain's already showing up, dude. So wait, René. Before we start, I gotta do this real quick. Watch this, everybody.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, we gotta do it. Hold on. There it is. Look at us.
Oh man, I can't even believe it.
Look at this.
And it's not a trick. And here, sign up for my ebook. And just here, like, let's learn together. And what
I had to bring up the first. I feel like that podcast was 17 years ago. Like.
Technologically, it probably was.
So, hey, for everybody joining live right now, what's up, Joe? We are on LinkedIn, Facebook Business, YouTube, even Periscope on Twitter. Awesome. Thank you guys for hanging out. Let us know you're here. Say hi. But yeah, René, we got to talk about just the transformation from our first podcast to this one. I mean, I'm just chasing behind you, dude. Look at your setup. It's amazing. Just this to now.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on here, dude. I have been watching front row every one of your podcasts, everything you're doing, and it's amazing to see and to have somebody running with you. You know what I mean? This has been, you and I got in this. We looked at each other and said, "This is new." Both of us had horrible setups. We look like trash on there now compared to what it was before. Remember that? It was just amazing. Oh. And then we're just like, okay, I throw out an idea. You're like, oh, well, then we do this. And I'm like, shit, I'm going to do that too. And then all of a sudden we're both just like pushing and pushing and pushing. And I'm watching what you're doing, dude. I'm so beyond impressed with what you've done. And it's just been a pleasure to have somebody pushing you to be more innovative, leading the way. Cause you're leading the way in so many ways, dude, man. So it's been awesome.
It's one of these things, Joe, it does get better and better. Every day you got to put a little more into it. Like I used a webcam forever. I used my iPhone forever. And then I was like, why does this person look so good? and not, and then I was like, oh, well, because they've decided to buy a real camera. They decided to put like investment into this. And so here's where I want to start. So, we were rapping before kicking off the podcast, and this is where my heart is, and I'm super focused on it. I grew up in traditional local retail lending. I went Thursdays and Fridays to broker previews. I met realtors. I went to open houses. I went to broker previews and caravans. I would set appointments with agents for coffees. And then I meet my customers face to face. I'd ask them questions. I lived that full local life. Fast forward, the world's gone digital. The world's gone internet first. And people aren't responding, in my opinion. They're not responding. And you're coaching directly into this now. So I want your take on the importance of this, how to get better at it, why it matters. One of our things was digital storytelling. If you guys saw the banners before we started, because there's a science to it. There's an art to it. And I think you're actually like the best person to talk about it. So I just gave you like a full white canvas to answer any way you want to go on that. But man, dive into that topic.
Well, so let's get honest. This isn't new. It's not new. It's just new for us. And so we've been watching TV since we were kids. I think you saw my post on Mr. Rogers. He was the best storyteller, influencer of my age and our age, and he did it virtually.
Yep.
We watch movies, full-length movies. We're engaged. Our periphery goes away when our favorite TV show goes on.
Yep.
And so it's not new. And so we have to just get over the fact that it's not new. It's just new for us, number one. And then on the other side too, I saw a post today, sadly, it was a realtor broker owner said, raise your hand if you're over it in, Zoom meetings. And I'm thinking, how sad that you think you're over it. And this is just beginning. and it's going to come with a vengeance. And if you haven't embraced this world, the fact that we have the option of just doing this, where before, if we wanted to do this, we had to plan a flight.
Yes.
We had to get on a phone call, which we couldn't hear each other, but we had to get on a flight, and it would take 2 days of our time just to be able to do something like this. Now we click a couple buttons, we put a little investment, some time and some thought, and now we can create something that feels like it's on TV. The power is in our hands, but we have to realize, embrace it, number one, and then start calling on the people that already know how to do this. And here's the little secret. Most of them are starving for work right now. And so they'd be happy to help.
See, I love that, because all of human knowledge is like here, so to speak. A lot of misinformation too. But I mean, I've watched so many YouTube videos on how to set up a camera, what angle, lighting, like I've watched so much content on this stuff because, to your point, it's all out there. I've even asked people, like you and I have collaborated before, like, how did you do that? That looks amazing. What are you doing there? I think that everyone needs to hear that. It's just there's help out there. There's resources out there.
Actors, news reporters, people that have been on camera, producers, directors. Now, here's the thing that I will say. There's a new skill set out there. And if you're watching this, and you want to tell your kids what's going on there, there's a hybrid skill that's needed that is very rare. I only know 2 people that have this skill. And that skill is somebody that understands technology and video. Because the people that understand video have no clue about technology, because the video guys or gals, they use a camera, and then when that film is recorded, it goes onto a scan disk, and then they take that scan disk, they take it to an editing software, and then they take that post-production and then feed it out, and then we post it. That's not streaming, because the video now has to be streamed through a technology, internet, cameras that weren't designed to be on the web. I mean, how many loopholes did you have to design to go through just to get to yourself to look this way?
Yep. Tons.
Right. And so then now you have IT guys. You think, oh, well, I got my IT person. They have no clue about video. So they're going to grab a webcam, throw you on, and it's going to stream, and it'll be good, but you're going to look like garbage. So you have to have the person that understands video and technology. That is a rare individual. I only know 2.
And to that point, though, I it's attainable. Like I joke, like we all learned how to drive cars. We all learned how to navigate smartphones. We all figured it out. It was new. It was hard. But it's so mandatory, in my opinion. But I see so many people just like, well, that's not for me. Yeah. And I'm like, well, then maybe the career isn't for you anymore. Like, I mean, maybe it's all moved on, because this, in my opinion, is so crucial. And I'll even say this, and I love your take on this. Leaders not figuring this out are diminishing their influence and their leadership ability. I mean, what's your take on that?
It's a big topic, and I think you're going to love this conversation. So if you were to ask me, what's the one thing I've learned this whole time? We're in a battle, I used to say, of trust and attention, right? But there's a bigger battle, and it's called disassociation. So the real psychology that's happening right now is disassociation. So what's disassociation? If you were to look at a serial killer, right? They disassociate from their victim. And that's why they don't have a family. They're not real. And so they can dismember them. They can do whatever it is they do. Remember, it puts the lotion in the basket. It's not, hey, put the lotion in the basket. It's it puts the lotion. That's disassociation. And so if I'm on a Zoom call and I can't see your face, if I can't see your eyes, if I can barely hear you, I start disconnecting and disassociating from what's happening. Yep. And so I have several big clients. 3M is one of them that we're looking at helping them with their sales force. I've got another very large company, larger than 3M. They're global leaders. I had this conversation with them, and they literally sit back and they go, oh my God, you're right. I literally look at my Zoom calls as something I have to get through.
Yes.
It's a meeting I got to get through. And we start with that. And I said, so first let's show up in a way. And I go, and if you think this is about vanity, you miss the boat.
Yes.
This has nothing to do with vanity.
No. Yes. 1,000%.
And so let's break it down. Like all the things, like, why is it fun watching you? What are we doing here? So number one, camera angles. Why is camera angle so important? And it's not, most people think camera angles are about looking skinnier, right?
Sure. Vanity metric.
Right. It's not. This is about recreating the in-person experience that goes under that we don't understand. So imagine, I'll give you an example. Go into a conference room and you have disproportional chairs. You have one chair that's a super small kiddie chair and one that's a big chair. And you take your client, you put them in this tiny little chair, and you sit in this other chair. So now you're looking down upon them and they're looking up to you. You would never do that. And the reason you'd never do that, one, because you don't even have the option to do it because of standard office design. All chairs are made the same height. So now in this world, they just removed all of standard design and gave us a camera and never told us where to put the camera. And some are too high, some are too low.
Yeah, the jackasses that made laptops put them in the bottom right-hand corner.
I haven't seen that. A camera down there?
I don't even know if my Dell's here. These Dells, so Macs have the camera at the top of the screen, but Dells put their computer in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So it's so horrible. It's a joke.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. But nobody. That's again another point. Nobody was ready.
No one's ready.
And then people are saying, "Well, I don't want to. We can't invest in lighting." I said, "Well, do you have lighting in your conference room? Why did you invest in lighting in your conference room?
Weird.
What if the lights went out in the conference room? Would you fix that? Well, your lighting is out. You look like you're about to shoot a hostage video. Let's fix that."
Yes.
So it's like, to me, it's like those are the things that we start saying, okay, what's the formula? One, camera angle. So now we're eye to eye, right? And now we can see you. And why do I need to see you? So you can see the facial expressions right here. If I can see that this is a fake smile, or if it's a real smile that actually happens in the eyes, I start connecting with you. Yeah. And so lighting matters. But you know what the most important one is to me? Audio.
I was just going to say, so I'm doing a back to basics series right now where I hit lighting last week and I gave them all my recommendations for lighting, and I hit cameras and webcams, and audio is coming next week. And I have labeled it the most important thing. So I want to hear why you think that, because we haven't talked about this.
Well, can you hear me now? How do I sound right now?
So good.
So, I mean, here I've got a $30,000 studio right now with the best lighting and everything. But what's missing right now for you? It sucks. And so now when we bring it back, all of a sudden we start realizing that audio is what pierces through the screen and what we can actually do. So we take it for granted, but it is what I'll give you another example. Having a phone call with someone and they're going through the mountains and you can't hear them. It's called the meeting's over.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah, it's just the meeting's over. It's like, well, we don't want to spend time on that stuff. Well, if I can't hear you, the meeting's over. There's just nothing. It's like, let's stop messing around with this. Let's embrace it. Let's grow up and realize that this is where we're at. Let's solve for it, invest in what it takes to do it so that we can actually start having meetings again. It's really that simple.
I've been relating it to buying or investing in a nice suit. You buy or invest in a nice suit because you want to make an impression. You want to bring that suit to the meeting to showcase that you're here to play.
Yeah.
So
I think it's huge.
Yeah, I look at this and I go, if you invest in cameras and lighting and audio, I can tell you're here to play. You came to make sure your message would be clear. You came to make sure your message would be heard, and that you would be seen and experienced. And you're right. I love that comment that this isn't new. We've been watching movies. This is just new to us today. That's a great line, dude.
But it's true, and where somebody thinks, well, I can get by in a sweatsuit. You can.
For sure.
But if I can't freaking hear you, it's like you're not showing up to the meeting. You're literally not even considered because of disassociation. And so when you start putting back in play the things that feel real, that's why they spend so much money on lighting in a movie, because they want it to feel real. That's why you have lighting behind you and in front of you, because it creates a three-dimensional feel. And so, like, let's even take a look at this. What would this look like? So now I've got my great audio. And so I'm going to turn the lighting off, right? So I've got 9 lights that are in here, none of which are facing me, by the way. That's a kind of an important thing. Not a single one is facing my face. It's all bounced, right? And so, okay, well, let me turn. I've got a light over here on my. I'll turn that one back on. So this is on my fan, my ceiling fan.
Yep.
Right. All I did was get rid of professional lighting and use a ceiling fan, and it looks like garbage.
Well, no, you look like you're going to be interrogating me or something.
This is the scary movie thing, right? But you put the lighting back on, all of a sudden, now watch this. This is kind of interesting. The lighting's back on, but I didn't turn off the yellow light. There you go. You know it. You saw it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Once I turn it off, and now it looks real. It looks live, and it tricks the brain into thinking there's an actual person here.
but there is an actual person there. Like you're there, like we're here. So I mean, it's a trick as much as it is reality.
True. Good. I like your statement better. Yeah, you're right. That is actually, that's a much better saying. There is a real person there. I love that. Fun
contact question by Joe or comment, which I agree with, that we have LOs pushing back. I don't have time to learn and invest, and soon they'll have plenty of time.
Joe couldn't be more correct. I said, don't invest. That's fine. If I'm competing against you, I don't want you to invest.
Yeah.
But the reality is that this has become the new basic stuff. Like it's not, oh, you're upgrading a camera. No, you should have a camera. You should have lighting. You need to understand if your technology change in your LOS system was there and you said, I don't really want to adapt to it. I'm going to stay like, what?
That's a great line. Like, how would you do loads?
Yeah, you're not going to do them because other people are. They're going to figure it out, and you don't have to. But again, it's not about vanity. It's not about vanity. This is about recreating a connection online, because disassociation, the opposite of disassociation is connection.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask you this question, and I'll cue it up with this compliment to what you're saying, because I see it the same way. You know, I equated in the early days in 2003 through 2008 when I was originating door to door, street to street, chest to chest, and I would coach loan officers on my team. It would always be like, this is how you win. You go out and meet realtors, you build relationships. And of course, the first time you walk into an open house, it's not going to go well. Like the realtor will be like, thank God, you know, Alec, I've been waiting for you to walk in here. We've never met before. I mean, my first experience was at an open house to the top agent in the county. Was I parked my Honda Civic, I put on jock jams, tried to get pumped up, and then I actually just drove away from fear of rejection. So like my first experience was I didn't even go in. But today, the coaching is you need to start pushing out content and videos. You need to make your message clear. You need to start learning how to do this. Your first one's going to suck. It's going to be terrible. Our podcast, what feels like the beginning of the year, was fine. I mean, we were playing the game, but it wasn't where we're at today or where we're going to continue to go. And so you ran these incredible in-person events that I've never got to go to, but I've heard from everybody that loves them that they were amazing. These Amplify events, and you took them digital. And I want you to explain what you did and what transformations are happening there.
Well, the first thing I did was didn't just go digital. I didn't just say, oh, I went live, let me go digital with it, because it's a different experience. I sat for 6 months, Alec. Like, and this is, I'll tell people, say, what makes what I do different is I don't just read something and then start regurgitating information out there. I did 200 live events before I started doing Amplify Virtual. And to figure out what disassociation meant, the importance of equipment didn't matter. It does. What are the nuances? How does hand motions work differently live versus in person?
Yeah.
Because if this is in person, you can't see it now.
Yeah.
This is how I would talk.
Yeah.
But now I have to raise it. This looks funny.
Yeah. You look like Ricky Bobby. I don't know.
It's like I'm like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? So there's behavioral changes, technological changes, and psychological changes. There's all sorts of things that are happening. And so we looked at that and I said, how do the amplified principles of influence apply in a digital world? And once we figured that out, we created the course, and we have had, and I'll tell you, the same exact level of transformation that we have live. We have virtually.
If you guys haven't followed any of this stuff and you're on social right now, jump over in a minute to René's stuff, because you've posted some clips and I've been like absolutely blown away watching somebody who shows up in Zoom with the camera up their nose and the lights garbage and you can't hear them. And you get that echoey room sound where it's just terrible. And then, literally you clip forward and their confidence has dramatically changed.
Yeah.
And I know that's what you do, but you can watch it happen.
It's fun to watch. There's a couple, like I tell, like our first session is we set the baseline of where they're at, right? We do an orientation because there's 5 sessions, and then we set the baseline to say, okay, where are you at? I try to make no changes to what's going on. I want to see them. I always take them and I'd say, I draw the G and then GL and use their nose as the word Google. If I can write Google with your nostrils, your camera is way too low. And so
angle issue.
Oh, it's crazy. And we use humor. And of course, if I can see the floor, your camera is way too low. And so, but they learn basics of lighting. And this is important but we want to get past it so that we can actually hear you.
Yes.
And I tell people, if they have a horrible microphone, I said, look, tonight, go to Target and Best Buy, buy the best one you can afford. Mm-hmm. And if there's a $100 one and a $200 one, buy the $200 one. Trust me, it's a night out for sushi. Just do it. Go do it. It's not expensive. It's just new expense for you.
That's
you
right.
weren't expecting it, but say no to a couple things. Say yes to this. If you're the mortgage industry, you have no excuses.
Oh,
you have the money.
You have to.
So then we go through, we set the baseline, then we start introducing the formula once it's there. And then they go through the process. And I've got some things if you want to see, because the other part was, how do you manage the stress level? Because I want to raise, like, Amplify is known for being highly stressful.
Yes.
On purpose.
Yep.
What was that? I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, I said, yes, I know this. Like I've seen people, I've talked to Dave, you introduce stress to drive some stimulus changes. Yeah.
And so I'm going to give you another formula that you'll love, and things that you're doing already, by the way. And so this is what I love. And so there's a formula for attention, right? The formula, and when I say formula, I'm talking about neurological formulas, 2 neurotransmitters that you have to trigger at the same time. The first one is you have to trigger dopamine. Dopamine is triggered through novelty, right? So you saw this, right? Wrong side. The StreamYard changes everything for me, right? So this is right. So a little brain floating on screen, right? This is novel. And so that triggers a little, like you say, oh man, I saw that. That's a dopamine response. Now novelty wears off, and I've got to do that. And so there's a couple things, other things that we'll do. So let's say you're telling a story, like, be a bad speaker and tell me, like, this is your first time I say, Alec, tell me a story of what you do.
Yeah. I'm in the mortgage industry, and I help people get financing for homes. And I'm a leader, and I lead a team of salespeople.
So now, so you saw that. So I need to crawl through that screen, jump in on your side, create a stress response. And when you totally fail, right, we're going to completely shut it down. And I got that from watching X Factor.
Oh my God, it's so good. Some poor person that you're doing this to. I can experience it right now. Like, oh my gosh.
So, but now what you felt was the second neurotransmitter, which is norepinephrine, which is created through tension. So novelty and tension creates attention. And so there's lots of ways. Every good movie is novel, and it creates tension. That's the conflict, and it keeps you there. And then it releases that tension at the end. And so that's sort of the process. And I learned that from movies, directors, filmmakers, also through some of the biggest ad firms in the world that used to be my clients. And so they were talking about, how do you create tension, and not how do you create it? How do you identify tension?
Yep.
And then break it. That's also the key for viral.
Yeah. That's the equation right there.
And then if we do really, really good, we have to be able to celebrate as well, right? So it's all of those different elements. And so again, it's bringing this little box to life and something that is unique, and then you create accountability in it. This is the thing for leaders. Go back to your question with leaders.
Yeah, please.
You saw the video where we saw the grid, and people were just, completely disorganized. There was no uniformity to it. And where I got that idea from is actually a really good friend of mine, John Thomas, who's vice president for the Timberwolves. And he showed me 2 videos. He said, I want to show you this video of a team walking out on the court. And one person straggles out the court, and then 2 people come off. One's got their warm-ups half on, half off. One of them's got the pants off, but the shirt on. One of them does no warm-up on. One has the full warm-up on. They straggle on the court, and they start shooting around.
Yep.
And I'm like, looks like a normal entrance to a game. He goes, well, let me show you what the Lakers do.
Yep.
One team, same uniform, all worn the same, running out in the same line, touch all 4 corners, go up the middle, split off, and do layups. And he goes, that's a team. And that represents their culture. Our culture follows us as well. But here's the thing. And I saw the leader. I said, look at your grid of Zoom. You got people that look like they're shooting terrorist videos. You got a guy looking like he's creeping into the video because he's literally off to the side like this, and it's dark, and he looks like, I literally tell people, I said, don't go to your car with that guy watching. It's like, holy, what's going on?
My favorite Zoom one is the person that's like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. I know I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, let's really connect, right? Let's connect. And here, the ones with bad lighting, I'll show up to my Zoom calls like this, and we'll be there and be like, I'm like, what's the problem? I'm live. You can see my eyes, but does that really matter? So
it's the new world, dude. And I love that you're pushing into it. I'm going to send this out to a bunch of people after we get done live too, because I just want the dialogue to continue to happen, because it's a progression. And I don't want to cut people off and make them feel like I can't do a video now because I can't show up in this professional movie studio environment, right? So, and you coach people through that. So how do you, they can't,
like you can't shortcut. How many mistakes did you make?
They're called learning experiences, René.
Yes, exactly. Right. But you wanted to have as many as you could. Like, dude, every time we were on the call, you're like writing notes. And then you gave me that one of like putting the glass up. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. I'm writing notes, and we're like rushing out to the store, buying stuff, failing with it. That's too difficult. Oh, this makes sense. You got to get in the game and you got to fail.
Well, but
you got to fail. You got to fail.
The self-judgment. How do you coach through self-judgment of somebody being like, they're coming down on themselves too hard? And
you want the therapy, because there's a therapeutic approach, or that's just to get the shit done before your competition does. Right. And so, I mean, self-judgment is a real thing. That is really, really hard. And I have video of when I first started doing this 20 years ago, and it is excruciating to watch. My social anxiety was through the roof. I couldn't speak. I was a mumbler. I couldn't look people in the eye. I didn't understand the importance of how to dress. None of it was there. But over time, with practice, you just got to do it. And I hate that kind of advice, but it's also true. And now, if you've got self-judgment issues, get therapy. Talk to somebody. If you've got some like personal issues, we all do it. Like, everybody does it. It's a good thing. If you're constantly judging yourself, well, then talk to somebody who's going to help you not do that.
Yeah.
If you have the willpower and the capacity to push through it, then I say push through it. Figure it out, because if you make mistakes and you learn, you'll get better. Make mistakes, you learn, you get better. Make mistakes, you learn, you get better. You just got to do it a lot. And I guarantee you, Alec has made more mistakes, and I've probably made more mistakes. All of us here together made more mistakes than anybody who's just starting. Your learning curve goes as fast or as slow as you want it to be based on how often you're willing to fail.
See, I love that, and I agree with it so much, because one of the things I push into for people, and especially on my team, is just go do it. And they're like, well, I don't have the camera and lighting you said I need to get. I'm like, I don't care. Do a video today, go get the camera and lighting for tomorrow. But, put the reps in, so to speak.
Yeah.
You get stronger, you build more confidence, you realize the world doesn't end because you went live for the first time. And
well, there's another component to doing video, is that this is one thing I've learned too, and I bring things from my last 20 years of doing other industries and working, is one of the most important things, number one most important thing for leadership is self-awareness. And imagine a leader with no self-awareness, right? They're disconnected. And video forces self-awareness. And if you, like, one of the reasons we do the Pimp My Zoom idea is, like, I'll come on and we'll just put people on the grid and we'll just start dissecting what's going on.
Yep.
And we do it with humor. That reduces the stress response around the change, right? So I'll make fun of people with, the Google knows or the terrorist videos or whatever. But then the purpose is to create self-awareness and make self-awareness and change a safe thing. So if you're a leader, you got to be able to, number one, have the courage to make standard practices and expectations on your Zoom calls, because the way people sit and the way people show up, their lighting and their camera matters to your digital culture of how it is. People are saying, how do I team build?
I love that digital culture. I love it.
Because how are you team building? Well, you can't team build if I can't see you. I'm so sick of having to repeat myself on this thing. You got to just get the basics out of the way. The same way if you were to show up to a company meeting and the lights didn't work, and nobody could hear each other because there's construction outside, people disconnect and disassociate from the meeting. There's no engagement.
Immediately.
And so let's put all the basics in play for this world. And if you haven't accepted it, you have a rude awakening coming your way. I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want it to happen to you. So wake up, take a look at what's going on, have a little courage to start learning again, and get out there and start figuring it out, and hire people to help you. If you don't know lighting, hire a photographer for an hour. Say, but you got to put a Zoom call up because they're not going to understand digital. Say, make that in here look good right there on that screen. They go, okay. And they start talking about 3-point lighting, getting the things. Well, it's $100 for a light. Yeah. You get paid thousands for a loan.
You're going to have that light forever. Like it's not like they last longer than your suits do. Like you have for a long time.
And it's nothing for the value that you're going to get from it.
Yes.
And so if you don't understand that, and the more you do video, the better you're going to get at it. Ask people for advice, talk to a couple people, have accountability so that they can ask you for things and you can ask them and you can show them and they can give you feedback. These are basics.
Let me go this direction for a little bit as we keep the podcast going here. I want to talk about digital storytelling. I want to talk about storytelling and communicating effectively through this box. And I think you're one of the better people to address that topic in the world and in the industry, especially our industry today, because it's crucial. It's a skill set. You know, you learn things like matching and all these other fun things and silly things as you go up through sales. But now we're here. How do you tell a good story? How do you communicate effectively in this box?
Assuming we have the technology, lighting, and audio and location down.
Yeah, assuming you got that down. How do you communicate effectively?
Almost the same way. That's the thing. That's what I kind of learned. It's like now I can go back to things there. So let's talk about a couple of things that matter for. You can't tell a story if you're not connected with your audience, and so you have to have all the things to connect. And that is a self-awareness around where the camera lens is, which is the eye of your audience.
Yeah,
right.
It's hard.
It's not over here.
You want to look at the person sometimes.
Yeah, it's not over there. It's right there. And so if I'm connecting with you, I've got to be able to look at you. And so now, because I can teach you all the best things about storytelling. And if you're like, to your point over here, it's not the same. Now, there are some scenarios where this is okay, an interview, so it feels voyeuristic. There's no pressure, like Joe Rogan podcasts or things like that, you know, I'm not looking. And so all of a sudden, if I'm in this and I all of a sudden look, it's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Right? Because I was just kind of observing and not having to be engaged. But if I want to engage you, I'm going to engage that camera lens. Then there's this concept called the dance of eye contact. And the dance of, if I were to be in front of you, I would not stare at you the entire time as I'm talking. I would say some things just to make sure you're paying attention. Then I might think for a second. And now as I'm thinking, you're looking at me. So that when I come back, I see that you're looking at me, and then you might look away as I look away, and then we come back. There's this natural dance that happens.
There is.
And so one thing I'll tell people is if you do need notes, let's say my notes, I'll give you an example. Where are my notes? If I'm doing the talk and I'm here, and so, you know, I'm telling this great story of what's happening, and where are my notes? Yeah,
exactly. You track your eyes, right? See where your notes are.
Yep. And so that's consistency. So in your first 30 seconds to a minute, look around as you're talking, right? You know, it's just like, oh, I'm so excited of what's happening, and give me looks everywhere. So I don't know where the note is. And so if I come back to the note, you didn't even know it was there because I looked all around because I danced with you in eye contact.
I like that strategy.
Right? So it's the dance. And so we got that, and that happens naturally in person. You would never do this to somebody in person.
No.
So let's just go back to dissecting and unpacking an in-person conversation. So digital storytelling is really just storytelling. You've got to have that frame, which sets the tone for what's going on, helps people understand the context before we go into it. Do you want me to go into framing deep? Or, I mean, I can give just a slight on that because.
Yeah, I mean, just give a high level view of that. Because somebody, like, here's where I'm picturing somebody hearing this in their state. They have digital videos they send out to customers explaining scenarios. They have Zooms with customers where they're explaining their consultation value. They have team meetings. They've got all, you know, that's the frame. That's the environment. So yeah, hit framing on that for a couple seconds.
So if you think about framing, well, first of all, sequence matters. Sequence matters in everything. And you know this already. We all know this, that if you had to deliver bad news, you don't start with the bad news, right? You start with something positive, and then you deliver bad news, and you end. It's the sandwich technique. It's old and cliche, but it understands that the brain doesn't accept negativity right away without getting defensive. And if the brain goes defensive, it triggers this part of the brain to shut off cortical access to the part that receives it. And so we have to use basically a science to be able to end around that natural process of defense from system 1, reptilian, general adaptation syndrome. We can go into that. It's been studied. Google it. It's not new. So if we understand that sequence matters, story matters with having a context to what's happening. And if we understand that the words that we use create an emotional response in people, and I'm not self-aware, going back to that lesson, that my words might create a negative response, then why would I start with that negative response instead of framing up something before? So the simplest example is this. If I were to say one profession, tell me what words come to mind used car salesman.
What profession is he?
Yeah. What words come to mind when I say used car salesman?
Excellent. Sleazy.
Right. So that's your frame. So you as my listener listen and understand everything. That's what you have to understand is through frames of reference. That's how the brain learns. Okay. So it's like scaffolding. I learned something new and it goes, well, what's that new thing kind of like? It's like this. Oh, it's like this. Attach it to that. Well, what's this new thing like? Well, it's like this over here. And if there's no frame of reference, we're now left in kind of a hard place.
Yeah.
And so we're bleeding edge on new ideas.
Yeah.
Right? When these new concepts and these disruptive ideas have no frames of reference because it was never thought of before.
Yes. Love it.
So now what we as storytellers and people that are trying to sell is we have to create the frame for our clients to best understand what we're doing and that sets us in the best light. So my grandfather was in Cuba and wanted to get out, wanted to get his wife out, my grandmother and my mother and her sister out of Cuba. And I forget, there might have been one more of the siblings at this point. And he wanted to get out. So he wrote a letter to the United States and the president and said, if you get me and my family out of this country, I will come and fight for yours. And so somehow that letter made it to the right person, pulled my family, my grandfather and his family out of Cuba.
Wow.
He served the United States and the U.S. Armed Forces. And when he was done, landed in Homestead, Florida, the American dream, right? Now, this was, I think, in the 50s, maybe. I go back. I actually asked my mother the times, but wasn't much opportunity in the 50s and 60s in Homestead, Florida. And so he was limited to how far he could ride a bike for his income.
Yep.
And so his income was dependent and really limited to that piece. But there was somebody who believed in my grandfather so much that he got him into an older vehicle. And that older vehicle gave him the ability to extend his reach, changing his income, changing the future and the trajectory of his life, my mother's life, and ultimately my life. That person who believed in my grandfather was a used car salesman. So you see the sequence matters. Because I created the frame of reference before you could. You didn't even have a chance to create a negative frame.
So say that again. Okay. Everyone needs to hear that. You created
please
frame
go ahead.
of reference before I could.
Yes, I have to claim the frame. That's what it is. It's a battle for the frame. And so if I can claim the frame, now that comes from an understanding of what we call predict, preempt, prevent. If I can predict that you're going to have a negative response to what I'm about to share with you, I have to jump out in front, set the frame, claim it before you do. Because if I don't, you will, and you're going to frame it based on your past experience. And I don't know if it's good or bad.
Yep.
It's just a risk. And so I'm going to frame it first, deliver my message, and then the last part, I'm going to then tell you what it means. That's called the tie down. So the amplify formula is frame, message, tie down. And the tie down answers the question of what this means to you is. And if I can answer that question at the end, I've created value. I've moved you with the frame, created the emotions necessary for influence, but I haven't influenced you yet.
Yeah.
And then I create, like a laser, I take all that emotion, laser it through to a specific behavior to create influence. And that's the formula.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way, because it's the next logical step to help people get through this change we're all in this digital world, is understanding, what you used to do maybe organically. Maybe listen to René right now. Maybe go back and listen to that segment again and say, okay, I used to have all my consultations organically, but what can I learn from that? How can I claim the frame with your customers before start thinking certain ways about you as a mortgage professional? Trust me, if they're referred to a mortgage guy or gal, they're already making opinions of these people.
100%.
And this is a funny brand conversation because it spins a little bit into brand, but it's also why I'm such a maniac pushing people to create digital brand, because they're going to Google you or they're going to look you up. They're going to start judging you. You haven't even talked yet, and they can already hate you. You didn't do anything yet. It's almost like claiming your frame and branding first before you let the customer, start making their own opinion about you.
Everybody needs to listen to what you've been telling them about that. I can't tell you how many people. In fact, you saw that post, my buddy Rick Rock.
Oh yeah.
Like, you want to know somebody gets it? Look at Brian. Look at Alec. I mean, these guys are just, they get it specifically for how to do it in this industry. And I mean, I'm just like I did. I love what you're doing. Anybody here that's watching this, just follow Alec. Just do what he says. It's the way to go.
Oh, just get in the water and swim, man. That's the game. You'll get better at it. So, okay, so René, let's kind of wrap up here a little bit. Summarize for everybody that's catching the tail end of this, because people pop in and out and all that fun stuff. how important is this new studio environment, and what should people be looking at?
Well, like I said before, imagine taking your customer to a place where the lights don't work, the audio is horrible, it's too loud, you can't hear, so your message can't get set across. Your audience will not engage with you because they are disassociating from you. They're now paying attention to other things that are more important. Maybe it's grocery lists, maybe it's another meeting. But if you can control your environment, that makes a huge difference. The challenge is you've been thrust into a digital environment,
yes,
where you have to be able to create it within this little box here. And that means production value. You used to go to a restaurant and production burden fell on the restaurant.
Yes.
They had the lighting for you. They had food. They had everything. You go to an event, that production burden falls on whoever designed that event. Production burden falls on us now.
You know what's crazy about this? And it's actually harder than people are thinking, because it is so easy on a Zoom call to disassociate. In fact, if anyone could take anything from this whole entire podcast, it's this understanding disassociation and just the conversation we just had around this. Because how easy is it? I could have another screen up right now, and you don't even know.
Yeah.
Because my camera's right here, and I could have a screen up, and you don't. I could be reading Facebook right now, and on a Zoom call, and you have no clue what's going on. And so because I've already disassociated. I'm giving you the and the and I'm staring at the screen, and you don't know if I'm watching cat videos on YouTube.
So there's a solution for that.
Go.
So let's talk about that solution right here. So if you're a leader and you're leading Zoom calls, okay? So if you can predict, preempt, prevent, the 3 Ps, right? If you can predict that people are going to disassociate and get distracted, then you need to get out in front of that before they start doing it, because it's a lot easier to get out in front of it than it is to call people out. And so all my meetings, people know that I create massive accountability. And so where Zoom initially made a mistake was all of the grid boxes were the same size.
Yep.
And so because we're all the same size, I don't know where to look.
Yep.
And so before, I used to train people, say, okay, if you introduce yourself, don't go, hey, everyone, my name is René Rodriguez.
You know, we just talked.
Hey, everyone, my name is René Rodriguez. I move my hand so at least you can see a hand moving on that grid. And if there's 20 people there, you go, oh, there's that one hand that's moving, because our eyes follow movement. Simple. Great. Neuroscience applied. Real simple, right? So now Zoom allows you to spotlight.
Yep. And speaker view and stuff like that. Yep.
So, but speaker view is confusing. Somebody coughs and it changes. I hate speaker view, right?
Yeah.
So, the spotlight allows me to control. That's why I love StreamYard, which is what you're using right now, where if I want people to pay attention to, let's say, can you do it where you're big and I'm small?
Oh yeah.
So let's do that. Right. So
there you go.
Now let's say you're running and there's 10 people, 9 people over here on the side, and you see one that's doing this. You just drag and drop them over. So drag and drop me over.
Oh, hey, Renee, how's it going?
Hey, sorry about that. Yeah. And then by changing the size of the box, you create accountability, tension, and stress, and novelty, and everyone's going to start paying attention. It's just controlling this.
Yeah.
So StreamYard, drag and drop, and Zoom spotlight feature.
Dude, that's a great like pro tip hack at the end of this as we wind down here, because it is new challenges for leaders. It is new challenges for all of us, and how we navigate this space and how we show up professionally and how we play the game in a big way. So Renee, give everybody a shout real quick about how they can get in touch to hear more about Amplify and what we're doing there. And pimp my Zoom. Hit that too again, because that's awesome. We didn't even talk about
it there just yet. I gotta point it, but the easiest way is go to see Renee speak. But amplifymylife.com is also, it'll take you right there to the videos. Did you want me to cover how to get a hold of me?
Yeah.
Yeah, just amplifymylife.com. Oh, I'm learning from you, dude. You can send me a text message here.
Yes.
I'm learning, right? Send me a text message to, it is 612. I'm going to make this even easier. Let's just have some fun here. This is how we're going to do it. It's 612 and 324 0456. There. Text me here. This actually goes right to my cell phone, and we can chat there. And I can be sitting over here. So yeah, send me a text message there. Again, we can have all sorts of fun with this thing, and it can be super cool. Oh, I didn't know he put a picture there, so I can actually do it like that too now. See, he's giving me all sorts of buttons. Like that's Ryan. That's awesome.
Well, my man, thank you for hanging out today, dropping just gems about how we need to evolve and continue to play big in the space. Everyone follow René, pay attention. I'm chasing his tail. I don't have his tech guy yet, but I'm going to try to hire him and move him out to California. So we'll see if I can. But I love this conversation, dude. I love the historical, like pulling up the first podcast and looking at the game.
Oh, that was so cool.
Dude, I appreciate your time today, man. Thank you.
Oh, man, dude, it's a pleasure. Dude, you have been such an inspiration for me too, man. It's like, there's one thing about wanting to innovate, and then there's other people that are out there innovating, and you pulled me just as much, my friend. Like, you're just watching, and the execution, though. Here's what I want you guys to learn about this guy here, Alec Hansen. He takes ideas and implements immediately. And you watch, he implements, he gets it, fails, stumbles once, twice, and then nails it. And sometimes just implements and nails it. And so implementation in this thing and speed to implementation is what's going to determine your success. So, dude, hats off to you. Bravo to you, my friend.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you guys for hanging out with us
and
today.
Your book, dude. Your book is ridiculous. Seriously, dude. That, like, I've heard from like 4 people, it is the best book right now written for the mortgage industry. Like, no joke. Everyone's like, it's the best. It's the best one out there.
Dude, you're the man. Appreciate you, dude. All right, everybody. If you enjoyed the podcast today, share, like, contribute. If you're watching this in the future, hit me up with a hashtag bypass. I always get a little joy that somebody took a minute out of their day to hang out with us on these podcasts. So thank you guys, René, everybody else. We'll see you guys. Have a great day.